Respected Secretary Telecom Shri K. Rajaraman ji, members of Digital Communication Commission Shri A.K. Mittal ji, Shri A.K. Tiwari ji, DG Telecom Shri Nizamul Haq ji, DG NTI Variety Shri U.K. Srivastav ji, DG TSDSI Ms. Pamela Kumar, other senior officers of the department, distinguished experts for the session, participating officers of the department, industry professionals, startups, academia, my colleagues from NTI Variety, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm good morning to you all. I am S.K. Bhalla, DDG with NTI Variety. On behalf of NTI Variety and TSDSI, I extend heartiest welcome to you all in this webinar on participation and contribution in ITU and 3GPP. With the permission of Chair Secretary Telecom Sir, let me give brief about this webinar, which has been designed and being conducted in association with TSDSI. We will start with inaugural session and move on to cover the subject in 3 technical sessions. Namely, first will be ITU structure and processes by Shri Bharat Bhatia, who is President ITU APT Foundation of India. Then we'll have second technical session, 3GPP standards development process by Shri A.K. Mittal ji, advisor TSDSI. And then last session will be on functioning of National Working Group and contribution submission process, which will be taken by Shri Ashutosh Pandey ji, DDG from Telecom Engineering Center. And last, we will have question and answer sessions. So we will start with the inaugural session, where first we will have formal welcome address by Shri U.K. Srivastav ji, DG NTI Variety, followed by special address by Ms. Pamela Kumar, DG TSDSI, the co-organizers of this webinar. Then we will have inaugural address by Shri K. Rajaraman ji, Secretary Telecom. It is his visionary leadership which keeps us motivated to undertake programs on contemporary needs. And finally, we'll conclude the inaugural session with vote of thanks. With this, may I request DG NTI Variety, Shri U.K. Srivastav ji, to formally welcome Secretary Telecom and other dignitaries. Over to you, sir.
And thank you very much. Thank you, Bhallaji. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. At the outset, I extend very warm welcome to our Secretary Telecom and Chairman DCC, Shri K. Rajaraman sir, who has kindly agreed to inaugurate this webinar on participation and contribution in ITU and 3GPP. He has been given great emphasis on deeper involvement of India in standardization process, and this has led to the organization of this webinar. I therefore made a special request to Secretary Sir to inaugurate the event, and he has kindly agreed despite his busy schedule. We are really delighted with your presence today, sir. Most welcome. And I also extend very warm welcome to Shri A.K. Tiwari and Shri Mittal, members of DCC, and Shri Nizamul Haq, DG Telecom. We are grateful for their presence today. Ladies and gentlemen, we are overwhelmed with the demand for webinars on varied topics, but Mr. A.K. Mittal, Member Services, insisted that we should conduct this event as early as possible. I think Secretary Sir was also asking for early conduction of this program. So therefore, this webinar today. I also welcome Ms. Pamela Kumar, DG TSDSI, who has kindly agreed to jointly host this event with us. Further, our hearty welcome to all the eminent speakers, officers of various units of DOT, CDOT, TSDSI, who are our partners today, academia, industry, etc. The participation in standards conferences is a very unique experience, and it takes some visits before one can feel at ease. Some amount of handholding, therefore, is required, and further submission of technical contributions is another specialized area, and every SDO has its own method for this. We therefore thought of bringing together experts who can talk on the 2 most important SDOs for telecom sector, namely ITU and 3GPP. And to top it all, we thought of partnering with TSDSI so that all the entities attached with it are drawn into this event, and also TSDSI's expertise in engagement with 3GPP is made use of. As Mr. Bhalla has alluded in today's event speakers, we have Mr. Bharat Bhatia, President ITU APT Foundation, who has vast experience in attending events in ITU. I think he is mostly in Europe and especially in Geneva, more than in India, Delhi. He has also chaired many groups in ITU. And then we have Shri A.K. Mittal, advisor TSDSI, who has handled participation in ITU in the capacity of senior DDG TC and is currently dealing with processes in 3GPP. And then Mr. Ashutosh Pandey, who is DDG in DDG Radio and TC, who has handled numerous contributions in IQR and IQT. I think it is almost 7 years now he has been handling these subjects. So I'm sure that with given expertise of these eminent speakers, today's webinar is going to be very informative to the younger officers and startup industry. With this, I once again welcome you all to the event. Thank you very much. Mr. Bhalla.
Thank you very much, sir. We feel always motivated to work under your able leadership. With this, may I request Ms. Pamela Kumar, DG TSDSI, to deliver the special address. Over to you, madam.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Rajaraman and Mr. Srivastav and Mr. Bhatia and Bhalla, Mr. Bhalla and Mr. Mittal. It's great to be amongst this august eminent people and talking about standardization. So I have this special address and I think I have about 5 minutes to kick off this event. So I would like to basically relay a story, right? So we've all, if not seen, at least heard about this movie 83. And I would make a claim here that our foray into this 5GI standards was our 83 story, you know, for in the world of standardization. So we sat, you know, we had never really made a big impact in standards, especially in telecom cellular standards, right, IMT standards. And our members, even in the pre-TSDSI days, they had been going to 3GPP or to ITU and trying to figure out what to do. They had been putting contributions. They had done some innovations which they felt were very important for rural India, and they were not really making much headway. Then TSDSI was formed, and still, you know, going to ITU and all, we used to follow the standard model of going through TEC or WPC, you know, through them, through the NWGs, and trying to make our contributions and different levels of considerations, or some things would be sent, some things would not be sent, you know, so we were trying all those models. And we were sitting in the ITU meeting, like actually the first day that my first joining date, I was actually in Geneva, the official joining date. And I was just trying to understand this environment. And I got a call from the secretary saying that this submission that we have made, this so-called LMLC, we have to make it through. And I was like, oh my God, what do we need to do to make it through, right? And we tried to rally, we realized we need multi-country support. So in the coffee breaks, we tried to rally support, and you know, it was a journey. And then Mr. Bhatia got involved, the veteran at ITU. We used to call him whenever we were in trouble. And then the TC. Somewhere down the road, we realized that it was better that TSDSI was an associate member, that we take a TSDSI delegation separately instead of trying to converge it into the India delegation. Make all the submissions, bring, and then call the India delegation, because sometimes they would be late, sometimes there would be somebody, you know. So we would want them to then come and support our submission. So that model worked. So we figured out a lot of stuff and finally got this accepted as a requirement. And then we put in a specification, got that specification. So it was a 3-4 year journey. And finally, the icing on the cake now. So people had been struggling. Parallelly, they were going to 3GPP and everything. The same submission, the same technology they were submitting was getting blocked. It was deprioritized. It was always deprioritized on the agenda. Okay, not this. Since release 14, they've been trying it. Not release 14, then not release 15, then not release 16, then not release 17. Almost not release 17. Okay, just because it got accepted in ITU, and then there was this amazing force with DOT and what is it, Niti Aayog, and you know, all the king's horses and all the king's men started chanting 5GI, 5GI. And we got 3GPP to open up, and looks like we're going to do this. So it's like, I would say our 83 story. We've got one jhanda, one cup, but are we going to be able to sustain this? That's the question. Is our ecosystem mature enough to be able to take it? Will it take us another 20 years before we get the next World Cup, right? So this is something we need to think. And this is where I think Mr. Srivastav and us coming together, and along with Bharat Bhatia, and trying to mobilize the ecosystem. We need to institutionalize building. We need, we have a Ranji Trophy model with our TEC, but we need an IPL model also. And we need to institutionalize our researchers and our ecosystem to be able to go into these World Cups and win. So that's my introductory 5 minutes, and I think I finished it in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam, for this brief journey about TSDSI and emphasizing the role of SDOs within the country and at international level. Thank you very much, ma'am. Now we are eager to listen to our Secretary, Sir, Shri K. Rajaramanji. May I now request our Secretary Telecom, Sir, to deliver the inaugural address and also inaugurate this webinar. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, so very good morning to all of you. And first of all, congratulations to you for having organized this amongst several other workshops. This is a very, very timely workshop, I would say. So essentially, it is like, the most important agenda before us is to look at how this decade can be the technology decade for India. I think as the Finance Minister and the Honorable Prime Minister have been repeatedly saying. So if this is going to be a technology decade, then there has to be overall and 360-degree support for development of intellectual property within this country, and also ensure that these get into some kind of global recognition in the form of global standards, in the form of products which are sold in the global marketplace, and so on and so forth. So therefore, this is a very, very difficult task, I think, because essentially India has been, so far, if you look at the long journey, I think there have been, let's take a leaf out of the information technology sector, I think, because that is a sector which has been fairly well developed. When people started off as BPOs, KPOs, LPOs, etc., and today we have a situation when I think we are manufacturing and we are producing products which are almost shrink wrapped, not necessarily shrink wrapped like Microsoft and other things, but almost productized, platforms available for sale across the world. I think so. Some of our IT companies have done that. So a similar thing has to happen in the hardware world also. I think in terms of telecom, electronics, etc. Where today, if you look at it, we are in the stage of assembly. I think which is pretty close to what BPOs and KPOs do. I think we are very, very down the food chain. So therefore, there is a need to enhance our presence in the higher elements of the value chain, especially in the form of development of technology. So and if that were to be our goal, if technological strength of India is our goal, then obviously I think it is very important that we be part of the international standards making activities in a very significant manner. We can't have a one-off kind of intervention or some kind of patchy, successes and so on and so forth. There must be overall, participation and greater convergence. I think so. Therefore, in this context, I would like to say that I think there has been a strategy paper which has already been put out by the Commerce Ministry, quite some time ago, called the Indian National Strategy for Standardization. So I think this is a very good document in a sense. I think so. If you look at it, there are 3 pillars which have been laid down there. First of all, the first one is standards development. I think that is the most important pillar in that document. And if I go through the goals, I think it pretty much states that what we all should be doing together, and I think we need to have a detailed strategy for the telecom sector built around this fairly well prepared strategy. Which the first goal is about convergence of all standards development activities in India. That's very, very important. I think as Mrs. Pamela said, I think today in the form of TSDSI, we have a platform where I think all these energies are getting converged. So I think this convergence of energies is what is required, and that is not enough, because I think there are a lot more energies which are lying outside the systems, like research and development institutions which are perhaps in some ways working in some kind of isolation. So we need to bring all these people on board. Similarly, industry. There are some patches of our industry which still is immune to the technology related development. So we also need to bring them on board. All manufacturers need to look at R&D investments as a very, very serious I think business, because essentially what has happened is that people are rightly so, and I wouldn't blame the industry, because industry by and large it's driven by commercial gains. So investing in R&D is a very strategic decision, and if there is no light perceived at the end of a long tunnel of investment, then I think obviously people are not going to invest. I think it is very natural. I think because people are looking at bottom lines, top lines, etc. So therefore, it is very necessary, therefore, for the government to actually to come in a big way in supporting this R&D efforts, because I think that is the core of the whole thing. Unless R&D financing in this country becomes large and substantial, sustainable and reliable and dependable for the local industry, I wouldn't expect the private industry also to put their cash on the table. So I think therefore from that perspective, this current budget has been a big development. I think we are going to put nearly about 500 crores on the table every year in the form of a 5% grant from the USOF for the telecom industry. Similarly, I think similar measures are being taken in the other industries as well. I think with the design-linked incentive schemes coming up, with other schemes like R&D financing schemes from the Science and Technology Ministry is also being ramped up, and so on and so forth. So therefore, financing of R&D is a very, very critical input in standards development, because obviously unless we have a local standard which is available, which is developed, I think then not a local standard, the local IP which is developed, I think then what manner of participation, what would be the nature of participation in our international standards bugging is a question mark, obviously. Unless you have something to contribute and say claim as something as your own, I think the participation is bound to be very peripheral and very ritualistic. So therefore, from that perspective, I think this preliminary, I see a lot of energy happening, because in the form of a lot of new startups and even mainline companies looking at R&D in the telecom sector as a very, very serious business, given the fact that the government has given the right signals in terms of declaring telecom as a strategic sector, where national security ranks much above any other consideration. So therefore, from that perspective, I think investment in R&D is going to be a major step forward. Similarly, I think if you look at it, the other goal which has been set up. So therefore, once we have a significant R&D investment mechanism, I think then we must have all the forces which are working on various elements of standards development or IP development in the country to need to work together in a very coordinated fashion. So therefore, my pitch to the participants of today's workshop, I think be they from DOT or from the TSDSI or from the industry or from any other kind of stakeholder groups that they may belong to, is that we must work together. Unless we have worked together, I think I don't see any possibility of this of our success in the global standards making body. So therefore, I would request that all the chairs and vice chairs of various groups, either be it ITU or 3GPP or maybe HC or IEEE and so on and so forth, must have a strong element of national working groups built up as a back end for all their contributions which are facing the global standards body. So unless we have a local internal stakeholder construction strongly consulted, strongly part of this, participating in the pre-standardization and standardization activities in IP development and so on and so forth, I think then the agenda for India will always remain weak. So therefore, from that perspective, I think this setting up mirror bodies within the country, I think involving all the current stakeholders and also supporting each other, helping each other to actually develop standards going forward is something that we must make a great pitch. So therefore, I would appeal to all the newly elected vice chairs and chairs of the ITU, who might be on this call, and also from other standards making bodies such as 3GPP, to actually look at ways and means of actually strengthening this local stakeholder participation in all the activities that lead to the contributions that are being made in these global standards bodies. So I can go on and on, but I would like to stop here by saying that the government, right now I think we have had a sufficient number of brainstorming sessions held within the Department of Telecommunication especially on ITU, because especially with the WTSA standards assembly has provided a great opportunity for us actually to think hard as to what India should do in the future. And for the first time, we have an internal strategy paper which is drafted and ready. So we will look forward to consulting with the stakeholders once again on that, and then laying out our full force behind in the strategy to ensure that we work in a very coordinated fashion. And I am very happy to say that out of the about 7 or odd, I think the chairs and vice chairs elected this time, I think we have at least two people from the industry, which I think we are really proud to see that. So I would like to see more people. That is one person from an industry and one from the academia. So I would like to see more such kind of candidates coming up who are completely what do you say, IP developers who understand everything like the back of their hand. So we'll be very happy to be with you, support you, and enable you to actually to be India's champions or ambassadors in these global standards making body, enabling India to make a dent in the global marketplace. So with these few words, I will stop here, and I will once again wish the conference all success, and wish to look forward avidly to the recommendations of this workshop to let us know how we can further fine-tune our strategy on global standards making. Thanks, and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, sir. With this, let me propose vote of thanks also. It is indeed an honor for us to have the presence of Secretary Sir in the inaugural session, and blessed by his kind words of encouragement. On behalf of NTI Piriti and TSDSI, I convey our deepest gratitude to you, sir, for kindly sparing your valuable time to inaugurate this webinar. Sir, you have emphasized the role of convergence of efforts by standardization bodies, R&D investments, collaborative efforts of industry, academia, and government. This webinar is a beginning, and we will work further in this direction. Thank you very much, sir. My sincere thanks to members of Digital Communication Commission, Shri A.K. Mittal ji and Shri A.K. Tiwari ji, DG Telecom Shri Nijamul Haq ji for gracing this occasion. Special thanks to Ms. Pamela Kumar, DG TSDSI, for partnering with the NTI Piriti in organizing this webinar. My sincere thanks also to DG NTI Piriti, Shri UK Srivastava ji, for leading the team NTI Piriti. With this, we conclude the inaugural session, and I hand over the floor to Shri Jitendra Garg, Director NTI Piriti, for conducting the technical sessions. Over to Jitendra ji.
Thank you, sir. Now we will start our technical session. There are 3 sessions in this technical session. First session will be taken by Shri Bharat Bhatia ji, President ITU APT Foundation of India. Question and answer session shall be followed after the third session. You can ask your question in the question and answer session, which is kept at the last by raising your hand or using chat box. We will invite you on the stage for asking the question. Now, now let us start with our first technical session. I would like to invite Shri Bharat Bhatia ji, President ITU APT Foundation of India and Vice Chairman of Asia Pacific at WWRF. Mr. Bhatia sir also chair the ITU Working Group on 5G Industrial Application and Public Safety Group in APT. He has been the President of TEMA. Please welcome Shri Bhatia sir. Sir, may I request you to start your session on ITU structure and processes. Sir, please. Platform is hand over to you, sir.
Thank you, Jitendra ji. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me share my presentation. 1 second. Can you see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so basically this my presentation here is going to be on structure and some of the processes. It's a
slide show mein kar le Bhatia sir. Slide show mein kar le.
Sure. Okay. So this is going to talk about structure and process. It's a vast subject, so I don't think the 45 minutes that I have, I'll cover everything. But I'll try to touch on many of the subjects which may be useful to you. So what I'm going to talk today is first about what is ITU and what is overall structure, and then the 4 main organs of the ITU, which is the Plenipotentiary Conference, the radio communication sector, the telecom standardization sector, and the telecom development sector. So those will be the 5 main areas. First, let me start with what is ITU. Everybody knows what's ITU, but I think you have to remember that it's a very old organization. It was created in 1865. It's based in Geneva, and there are 193 member countries and around 900 private sector entities and academic institutions which are its members. There are 12 regional offices around the world, and you can see that map of those regional offices. And good to share with you that there will be an India regional office soon. In the last meeting in WTSA, Secretary and the chairman, the Secretary General of ITU signed the agreement under which the India office will start. So that will now become the 13th regional office. And there are about 700 people who work as a staff of the ITU. The ITU is structured into 3 operational sectors and of course the General Secretariat. And the 3 operational sectors, first one and the most important one is the ITUR, or the radio communication sector, which is responsible for global radio spectrum management and standardization of the radio communication technologies. ITU-T sector, which deals with the standardization of wireless networks and the service aspects, and ITU-D sector, which provides assistance to the developing countries, to the least developed countries, basically the focus being to narrowing the digital divide. So those are the 3 main areas. All of these 3 sectors are independent on its own. The way it is structured is that at the highest level, we have the Plenipotentiary Conference, which is the supreme body of the ITU, which deals with all the highest level policy decisions, which then comes under it has the ITU Council, which meets on regular basis and runs the day-to-day affairs of the ITU. And then there are 3 independent sectors, which are standalone sectors, which have their own financing with their own staff, their own people. As I mentioned, the T sector, which is the standardization sector, the R sector, which is the radio sector, and the D sector, which is the development sector. Now, for the membership of these sectors, while the countries or administrations get a single membership for all the ITU, as a sector member, if you want a companies or academia to become members, they have to take a separate membership. I think there is a little bit mistake here, but the membership of T sector is around 10 lakh rupees per year. The R sector, which is the most expensive, is around 26 lakh rupees per year, and the D sector is around 3.4 lakh or something. So each of these membership has to be paid separately for the industry to become members of these sectors, and they are called sector members. But as a country, India is a member, and we have about contributing 10 units. 1 unit is around 2.6 crore rupees. So India pays almost 26 crore rupees to the ITU every year as our national membership. And under that, they can participate, India can participate in as many numbers in all the sectors. Each of these sectors is headed by a director. So there is a director BR. BR stands for Bureau of Radio. Director TSB, which stands for the Telecom Standardization Bureau, and the director BDT, which stands for Bureau of Telecom Development. The overall structure is then also supported by the General Secretariat, which is headed by the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General, whose main role is to run the overall organization itself. But the sectors are independent in themselves. So I'm going to start with the Plenipotentiary Conference, the reason being most important, plus it is going to come up soon in this year, and India is going to be a very active participant in this Plenipotentiary Conference. So I think it's very important for us to understand what is the structure and what is the process of the Plenipotentiary Conference. So ITU PP, which is the supreme organ of the ITU Union under the Convention and Article 7 of the structure, is held every 4 years, and it's around three-week period. And the main job of that is first to elect the management team. That means it elects all the 3 directors. It elects the Secretary General and the Deputy Secretary General, and it elects also the members of the Radio Regulation Board. I'll come to RRB a little bit later. And the council member. The council we talked about is the in charge of running the organization on a national daily basis. The plenipotentiary also determines the general policies for fulfilling the purpose of the union. And it is also responsible for amending the convention and the rules and regulations, and also adopting the financial and strategic plan of the ITU. Almost 2,000 people typically attend this, and this meeting goes for about 3 weeks. The next one, which is coming up, will be from 26 September to 14th October. It will be held in Bucharest, Romania, and this is going to be one of the largest ITU conference this year. This provides you the dates of the various deadlines that are coming up. So we are already past this first 2 deadlines. The next deadline is in May, when the registration for this event will start. And then 26th May is the deadline for submission of proposals. 29th August will be the deadline for submission of candidates for elections. And I'm going to come to the election candidates in a big way. 5th September will be the deadline for all kind of contributions. Any contribution, the last date is 5th of September. 24th September will be the last meeting of their coordination group. And 25th September will be the informal meeting of heads of delegations, which will basically decide who will chair what group, who will do what function in the conference. And the 26th is the formal opening, when there's a formal meeting of the heads of delegations. So this is the timeline from now until the 26th September, when the conference opens up. To develop the strategic plan of the ITU, and I think a strategic plan is very important, because that lays down for next 4 years what ITU is going to do. And that work started last year in the council and the secretariat. There is a council working group on the strategic and financial plan, which is meeting next week. I think it's meeting on 20th of March in this year in Geneva, and followed by there will be council meeting, which will then finalize the draft of the new strategic plan, and that will be submitted to the plenipotentiary conference. I think it's very important that India actively participates in this development of the strategic plan, because that will actually lay down the foundation of what ITU is going to do over the next 4 years. The plenipotentiary conference, just like other conferences, is divided into committees, as typically all ITU conferences do. So there are 6 main committees: steering committee, the credential committee, the budget committee, editorial policy committee, and the administration committee. And of course, there will be a working group of the plenary, which will do some high-level issues. So this is a very typical kind of structure of any major ITU conference. Now, while that during the conference, also the date has been laid down. The conference starts on 25th September with the informal head of delegation, then the formal head of delegation on 26th, the opening ceremony, then the election of chairman, vice chairman, then various policy statements, and then the elections will come, which will be the main highlight of this whole plenipotentiary conference. And of course, the work of committees to amend the CS and CV that will continue. And finally, on the 14th of October, the conference will end with the declarations and reservations and signing of the final acts, which the delegation head will have to actually physically sign there as a part of this new treaty. I'm coming to elections. I think elections is a very important part of the plenipotentiary conference and of the ITU. So every plenipotentiary elects 5 elected officials. And there are 5 main posts, which is the Secretary General, the Deputy Secretary General, and the 3 directors. So those are the 5 posts that are filled through elections. And for the next 4-year period, these people will be staying in Geneva, will be living in Geneva as a full-time elected official and employee of the ITU, and will have full diplomatic immunity and also level according to their rank of minister or deputy minister, and lot of perks, etc. Then there is a council membership. There are 48 seats for the council membership. 48 seats are divided among different regions, and I'll come to that. And then the Radio Regulation Board, which is an important board which educates on matters relating to spectrum management. And that board itself has 12 members, again divided in terms of the regions. And we'll have some more details of those. So already we are a little late. We don't have any announced candidates so far. For the Secretary General, 2 candidates have been announced. And I think everybody in the world agrees that Ms. Doreen Bogdan Martin, who is currently the director of the BDT, the Telecom Development Bureau, she is likely to become the Secretary General. The alternate candidate is from Russia, and it is unlikely that he will get enough votes to win this election. For the director of the Wireless Bureau or the Radio Bureau, Mr. Mario Menevich, who is the existing director, is the only candidate. And I think there's also kind of consensus around the world that this is second term, so he will win this election. For the Deputy Secretary General, there are 2 candidates, one from Lithuania, one from Korea. Dr. Lee, Dr. Chesav Lee is well known. He is the current director of the Standardization Bureau, TSB, and he is now a candidate for the Deputy Secretary General. The current Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Malcolm Johnson, who is a great friend of India, will be retiring this year, and he could have stood for the Secretary General, but he didn't get enough support, so he is not standing for that. For the TSB, we have 2 candidates, one from Japan and one from Germany, and it will be interesting to see. Most likely, the feeling that I get is that Dr. Thomas may be a winning candidate, although Dr. Ono from Japan is a very well known and very respected standards person. For the BDT, currently there is no candidates, although informally there are a number of candidates names floating around, but nothing has been announced as yet. Now, how the election process moves, it's very interesting to note that the election doesn't happen in one go. So a consensus building process is taken up to 4 times. So first there's a ballot, and then depending on the people who see that they are not winning, they could drop out. And the 6-hour time is given to decide for people to whether they want to continue in the second ballot. Then the second ballot is there, then another 6 hours is given. And then there's third ballot, then another 12 hours given. At the end of that period, the fourth and the final ballot actually only has 2 candidates. So out of those, if they get the same vote, then the eldest of those will get elected. But mostly by, I think, third ballot, it becomes very clear and other people drop out. And this process has happened for all the 5 elected posts. Next is the RRB. For RRB, there are 3 seats for Asia. And already there are 3 candidates announced. One from Saudi Arabia, one from China, one from Indonesia. And we have to see whether, I think there is a discussion going on that India should file a candidate. In the last RRB, we have no candidate, but previous to that, for the 2 terms or 4 terms, we had RRB membership. It is still possible for India to file the candidate. The time is still there, but we are a little late, so we'll have to expedite and then move fast. For RRB, the process is much simpler. It's not a 4 level. It's only the first ballot, and if there is a tie, then there's a special ballot. And even then, if there's a tie, the elder of the candidate gets elected. Okay, so that was all about the plenipotentiary and how it is going to move. The reason I wanted to cover this was that since India is at the verge of deciding whether to file candidates or not, whether how to participate in the elections for the RRB, etc. I think this provides a very overview summary. There are more details available, which I can share if needed. Now I'm going to move to the ITOR sector, the radio communication sector, which is, I think, one of the most important sectors from a spectrum management point of view, and also given the highest weightage in the ITU sectors. The fees for joining this sector is also the highest. This sector again has 6 major parts. The highest organ of the radio sector is called the WRC, World Radio Communication Conference. And then underneath that is the RRB, which I mentioned before, Radio Regulations Board, and the Radio Assembly. The Radio Assembly generally is held just before the WRC. It is 1 week long before the start of the WRC. Then we have the study groups. And the study groups, I will come in more details. And followed by the secretariat, which is called the Radio Bureau, or BR for short. So BR basically is the providing all the secretarial support to all of the organs of the ITUR. Now let's come to the ITUR World Radio Conference. These are the conference that decides which service gets what frequency spectrum. And since this is the most important, it is like almost like an auction, although there's no payment involved. But the services, the spectrum is allocated to various services. This is organized every 3 to 4 years. And the main role of this conference is to update the radio regulations, which is an international legal treaty governing the use of radio frequency spectrum and satellite orbits. Every WRC prepares the agenda for the next WRC and initiates a new study cycle in preparations for the next WRC. And during that period, technical studies on various agenda items are done by the ITUR study groups and are then sent in a special report to the administrations and the next WRC. So if you think this is more of a cycle, it starts with a high-level process where ITUR reports and recommendations, and then the assembly. All of this input has helped to the countries and to the regional administrations, and then the administrations then submit inputs to the WRC, and out comes the international treaty, which is the revised radio regulations. Many of you would have seen this radio regulations. It is almost like a Bible for the spectrum engineers. It has the status of a global treaty. It's a compilation of the rules and regulations and procedures for use of spectrum. Most important part of this is Article 5. Within the Article 5, there are frequency block allocations, allocations to various services. Then there are various mandatory and voluntary regulatory procedures for coordination, plan modification, notification, recording, all of the part of the RRR. Then there are appendices, resolution, and recommendations, which are also part of the RR, but in a separate volume. And there are also the ITUR recommendations, which are incorporated by reference. And these RR basically incorporate the decision of the WRC and are derived from the final acts of the WRC. So this is the Bible that all of us work on. It's the most important book. It comes out from every WRC, a new RR comes out. Then, as I mentioned, there is study groups which carry out all the studies. Three jobs were given to the study groups. One is to develop reports and recommendations. Second is to prepare the briefing note for the next WRC. And third is to coordinate among themselves for various services. Now there are 6 study groups today, and it keeps on changing. Every radio assembly can break or make new study groups or reduce study groups. The 6 study groups, the study group 1, which is on the spectrum management, study group 3, which deals with the radio wave propagation, study group 4 deals with the satellite services, study group 5 deals with the terrestrial services, and study group 6 deals with the broadcasting, and study group 7 deals with the scientific services. One of the most important study groups that we all deal with and become very important because of the mobile services is study group 5. And that study group 5 is then divided into 4 working parties. Working party 5A, 5B, 5C, and 5D. 5D again is become most important because that is responsible for all the IMT systems, which is the name given to the cellular mobile service, whether it's 3G, 4G, or 5G, or now 6G, all comes under the purview of Working Party 5D. So that's why 5D becomes very important. But 5A also is very important because 5A deals with the land mobile services other than IMT. So therefore, all the IEEE kind of services, Wi-Fi kind of services, wireless LAN services, or aeronautical mobile services, or other radio services which are not based on the 4G, 5G, all come under 5A. 5B also is very critical because it deals with the maritime mobile and aeronautical mobile service and the radio determination services. Again, very controversial and a lot of debates happen in 5B. 5C deals with fixed wireless systems. Again, for point-to-point services, 5C becomes important. There is also CCV, which is the Coordination Committee for Vocabulary. So all of this combined together is the group of the study groups. All report to the Radio Communication Assembly, which meets for 1 week before every WRC. So RA and the study groups, they function as a team. RA also has the role of electing the chairman and vice chairman of all the study groups. So it's very important to send candidates for the study groups to the Radio Assembly and get them approved there, just like WTSA, which was the Standardization Assembly. A quick view of what is coming next. There's WRC 23, which is coming up. The agenda for WRC 23 was developed in WRC 19. The first preparatory meeting was held just after the WRC. It is right the next week. And now the studies are going on, which are developing the technical and operational and regulatory solutions. So that's what is the status right now. The second preparatory meeting, the CPM2, is going to be held in March next year. And that report will then go to the WRC 23, which will be held around the end of 23 in UAE. I included some of the issues just to give you a highlight of idea what kind of things WRC deals with. For example, 5G spectrum about 24 gigahertz was the most important issue of WRC 19. And the procedure, it becomes very important because these meetings go on almost like 24 hours. And some of the pictures that you see here, this is midnight, I think around 3 a.m. When the final deal was broken, and there were people who got together and finally decided. It took almost 5 hours of closed door negotiations. So around 3 a.m. they were able to reach the. So it's a very hectic parley that happens during a WRC. This is the WRC layout. You can see more than 4,000 people sitting in one conference room, and also our delegation that went to the last WRC. Some of the other areas that WRC did last time was the Earth Station in Motion, very useful for satellite powered e-agriculture and other in-flight connectivity and those kind of services. I won't spend time on this. And also there are HAPS decision that will help connect the kind of LEOs and GEOs and MEOs, which will basically put together connectivity for people who are not connected today. So there is a WRC 19 agenda, which will kind of support the growth of small satellite constellations. So just to summarize about the ITOR, ITOR focuses around the WRC, every 4-year WRC, and then supported by the study groups on one side, the 2 CPMs, CPM1, CPM2, and the radio assembly just before it, supported by the radio regulatory board, and out comes the radio regulation. So this is the overall structure and the process that is followed every 4 years, deals with the spectrum management. I'm going to move on to the telecom standard. I'm okay for time right now, I suppose. So I'm moving to the telecom standardization sector. So again, the ITU-T sector has 2 areas, clearly the developing standards, various wireline standards, and a lot of very important standards have been developed in ITU-T, plus the technology, of course. laying down the overall requirement, specifications for various wildland services. And these are done in ITOT reports and recommendations and dealt by the study groups. Now, this is the structure of the ITOT sector. At the highest level is the WTSA, World Telecom Standardization Assembly. We are just back from WTSA meeting that was in Geneva. And under the WTSA, we have the study groups and the advisory telecom standardization advisory group, TSAC, and the office of this standardization group called the TSB. So this is the overall structure of this. There are 11 study groups under the ITOT, and I'll just quickly go through their names, and I think there are areas. Study group 2 deals with the operational aspects of ITOT work. Study group 3 deals with economic and policy issues. Study group 5 deals with the environment and circular economy. Study group 9 deals with the broadband cable and TV. 11 deals with the protocol and test specifications. And I'm happy to share with you that for the first time, India is going to chair study group 11. Mr. Mittal from TEC, I think, has been elected to chair study group 11 of ITOT. Plus, we have got a number of vice chairs in different study groups. Study group 12 deals with the performance, quality of service, and quality of QoE. 13 deals with future networks, and this is becoming very important because 13 is the one which is going to start work on the 6G and very critical for all the future networks and the cloud working. 15 deals with the transport and access services and home. 16 deals with multimedia. 17 with the security, and I think 17 is again become very important because cybersecurity and other related issues. Study group 20 deals with the IoT, smart cities and communities. Again, one of the most important study groups. So almost all the study groups are very important, but I would definitely single out 13, 17 and 20. We need to do a lot of work in these areas. So far, India has been very active in some of these study groups, but I think we need to build our momentum and start contributing to this. The work will now start creating the working parties and the reporter groups, and I think getting into those and taking those positions has become very important. Moving to ITU-D. D is again a very different sector than T and R because T and R deal with the regulatory aspects and the standardization aspects. D sector deals mainly with the promoting the telecom development. They have this regional development forum and then the telecom development advisory group, TDAC, plus the ITU-D study groups 1 and 2. The highest organ of this sector is the WTDC. WTDC is going to meet this year in June in Rwanda, in Kigali, and hopefully India will send a good delegation there. And that WTDC will then redefine all the future activities. So WTDC is going to rework the study groups, the TDAG and the RDFs. But I think in the D sector, there's a lot of work going on in the development projects, and I will list some of them. I think the time is short. I will not spend too much. But WTDC's main theme is connecting the unconnected to achieve sustainable development. Remember, the UNO has 2030 sustainable goals. So the theme of this WTDC is connecting the unconnected. And of course, there are a number of partnership projects, number of partnership tracks. There are a number of working groups that have gone through the recent, I think, last 2 years. There was one inter-regional meeting just last week, which was preparing for this WTDC, and we have been attending some of those meetings. Very detailed work has done, much different from what happens in WRC. This is more in terms of promoting the development of the telecom. There are a number of regional initiatives, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are a number of regional initiatives. Remember the last WTDC was held in Hyderabad. India hosted it, and at that, the first time this RIs were introduced, and they have become now a major part of the WTDC. And same way, of course, ITU also supports financial resources, and some of this I'll skip on this detailed preparatory process right now. 1 minute. Yeah. So what you can see here is the funding mechanism for various projects. ITU itself is not a funding mechanism, but funding agency, but it gets funding from various voluntary contribution. It gets funds from trust from third parties, of course their own ICT development fund, and of course the regular budget, which all fund various projects. As you can see, almost 14-15 million dollars, Swiss francs, are mobilized every year by the ITD. This provides some more details of what kind of expertise they are trying to develop in the area of capacity development. I think major expenses in the area of capacity development, cybersecurity, digital ecosystem, and the list is long. So I will skip this list. These are various ongoing projects that are going on under the ITU-D, and I think not so much in India, but the India office will also come under one of these projects. And you can see under Asia, you already have 6+2 projects. Various regional initiatives in Asia. What is important as a summary is that last year the BDT established a project board whose responsibilities include assessing various projects and seeing how quickly they can implement and how quickly to close the projects. So as we go to WTDC, there will be new projects, there will be new initiatives. So they're just getting ready for that. So hopefully our delegation to Rwanda will be actively involved in this. DDGIR is very actively working on this, and there are already APT common proposals. But I think I will close my presentation here. Hopefully I tried to put some structure and some processes, not exactly, but there could be many more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your experience on ITU structure and processes. It was very informative session, and we hope that the participants now understand the structure and processes being followed in ITU. Sir, you have made such a complex domain so lucid and simple. Now I would like, next session, I would like our speaker is Shri A.K. Mittal, sir. I would like to invite Shri A.K. Mittal, sir, advisor TSDSI.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Am I audible properly?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you very much. Let me start sharing my presentation.
Sir, A.K. Mittal, sir, he is advisor at TSDSI. He has worked in various capacity in DOT, such as in satellite communication, long distance microwave network. He is having more than 45 years experience in telecom domain. Please welcome Shri A.K. Mittal, sir, for his session on 3GPP standards development process. May I request Mittal, sir, to start his session? Sir, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jitendraji. Is my screen visible? Hello?
Sir, your screen is not visible. Okay. You are visible. Your video is there.
Okay, let me see my sharing. I was trying to start. Okay, just a minute. Yeah, now it will start probably. Yeah.
So now it is visible.
Okay, thank you. So today's presentation is about participation and contribution in 3GPP. So it has two parts. One is about TSDSI and other is about overview and participation in 3GPP. TSDSI, because once you talk about 3GPP, TSDSI becomes important because participation requires 3GPP participation requires that you are a member of a standards body in India, that is TSDSI. So we introduce briefly about TSDSI and then go on to 3GPP. So TSDSI is an autonomous and membership-based SDO for telecom ICT products and services. And this is recognized by DOT. It's a non-profit society. And we develop standards on all areas of telecom. Some of them are listed here. And we work closely with global standards bodies like ITU, 1M2M, 3GPP, and many other standards bodies or standards forums, and play an important role by our constitution in incorporation of Indian IP into global telecom standards. And the process of standards development is open, transparent, fair, and consensus driven, which is defined in our rules and regulations. And we maintain technology neutrality and provide uniform level playing field to the members. So the membership is from operators, industry associations, manufacturers, R&D, test labs, government, public sector, academia, and all. Anybody associated with telecom sector as an organization can become member. Here, membership is not open to individuals, but only the organizations as listed here. And they are categorized into corporate, associate, and guest or observer categories. Corporate members are those who are actually, once we define associate, then rest will be defined as corporate. Associates are industry associations, foreign entities, and foreign industry associations. Other than that, every other member can be called a corporate member. They have full rights to technically contribute, vote, and participate in the decision making. Associate members can only contribute to the technical activities. And guest and observer, there are slightly differentiation is that guest is somebody who is called because of his expertise to contribute in the technical activities in a bit of informal manner. And observers are those who are the organizations who have a intention to become TSDSI member but want to observe TSDSI functioning for a period of 6 months at a time. And this is, we will not go into much detail about this process which we have shown here, because it itself is can take quite a lot of time. But to know that how standards are developed, there is a new item proposal which is submitted to the study groups. TSDSI has 2 study groups, study group networks and study group services, and a new item proposal which is a proposal from the corporate member for a for development of a technical report or for a standard. So there can be 2 items, work item or a study item, depending on whether you are generating a report or a standard. And there is a process followed, and then we can have a standards process through transposition of 3GPP, 1M, 2M, and other standards bodies, and they are approved by the TSDSI general body to become finally a telecom standard. So we have 3 ways of doing it currently. Either we develop our own organic standards, and also second is through transposition, because we are member of 3GPP and 1M, 2M. So we have a right to transpose their specifications as our own and give them TSDSI specification number and operate them as TSDSI standards. And other types of standardization could be by adoption, where we are not a member to other organizations, standard bodies, but have an agreement to adopt. And there may be some limited copyright, distribution rights, and so many other things. That is a matter of detail. So this is just to show that in study group networks, we have a chair and a vice chair. And these are some of the items which are under discussion for either a report or for creating a standard. And you can see that we have started working towards 6G already, VLC or the Li-Fi, and then studies on spectrum in various aspects. Broadcast offload is a major area where we are looking for broadcast broadband convergence on wireless by using the spectrum of broadcast networks, and similar other things. Open radio initiative, that means we have items where open radio systems are also being addressed. Then study group services and solutions. Here also we have a chair and vice chair. There are elected positions. And here you can see from the titles, the important parts: cloud interoperability, critical communications, security aspects, various types of use cases, quantum cryptography, and all that. So this is a very limited list of work which is going on. And IPR policy, that intellectual property right policy, is an essential element of existence of a SDO that they should have a IPR policy whereby the members commit that they will follow the policy of IPR declaration while standards are developed, and also to commit that they will grant licenses to the users of those standards on fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory or friend terms. And this policy, our policy, is also aligned with other SDOs globally, like 3GPP and 2M, because, and also we are also meet the key provisions of ITU IPR policy as well. This is just an indication that when we participate in 3GPP, the 1 year data, that how many meetings of 3GPP have taken place in 2020, 2021, how much has been our participation in number of as participants, and how many contributions have gone. And the lower one shows that there is improvement over a period of a year in participant and number of contributions, average contribution per meeting. So with this brief background of TSDSI, once we start going through the 3GPP presentation, we will see the interlinkage with TSDSI. So what is 3GPP? It is actually a consortium of standards development bodies. It's not a legal entity, but a consortium. And it is made up of organizational partners. Currently, the organizational partners are from China, Europe, India, Japan, Korea, and US. And you see in this right diagram, in the center diagram, you see the names. It is ARIB, TTC, TTA, TSDSI, HCCCA. These are the partners of organizations who actually carry fund for for the working of 3GPP. And the outside outside of this inner circle, there are market representation partners. So they are mostly bodies who associate themselves for working with 3GPP, give a market feedback on various aspects of 3GPP work scope. They don't have rights as equal to the operational partners, but they sign the same agreement as the operational partners, organizational partners sign for becoming member. And the most important part for today for us to understand is individual members. So the organizations who are members of TSDSI or any of these OPs are eligible to become individual members of 3GPP and participate in their technical meetings and other meetings, whatever 3GPP organizes. So this is the structure. We will go into a little more detail. Yeah. So organizational partnership is open to standards bodies, irrespective of its geographical location. So, but what is the minimum requirement? It's a national, regional, or other officially recognized body, which is authorized to define, publish, and set standards within the 3GPP scope in that nation or region. Then it should have a IPR policy compatible with other organizational partners. It should commit itself to the all or part of 3GPP scope. There should be a project agreement which should be signed. And the standards organizations may apply to become an organizational partner by writing to any of the existing organizational partners. That means some organization wants to become a OP, so it has to approach through another OP for support. So the names we have already seen: ARIB from Japan, ATIS US, CCSA China, HC Europe, TSDSI India, TTA Korea, TTC again from Japan. There are two bodies from Japan. MRP we have briefly discussed. So they are invited by 3GPP. They apply and then they are invited by 3GPP to become MRP, and it is open for organizations irrespective of its geographical location. But the requirements are: it has ability to offer market advice to 3GPP and to bring into 3GPP a consensus view of the market requirements. So from India, for example, we have two organizations. One is COAI, Cellular Operators of Association India, and Broadband India Forum. So they are the MRPs. So you can understand that these organizations are represented by a variety of industry who can bring inputs for 3GPP to work upon. And it doesn't have a capability or authority to define standards, at least in the area of what 3GPP is working on. And it commits to 3GPP scope and signs the agreement. IMs. So its membership is an organizational partner, is a prerequisite for IM, being IM of 3GPP, as I mentioned earlier. And all entities registered as an organizational partner and eligible for participation in technical work of organizational partner. That means entity who is applying for becoming IM is not only a member of OP, but also should be able to take part in the technical work of the OP, and they can become by paying a requisite annual fee. So there is an annual fee charged for becoming a member of IM of 3GPP. It varies. So there is a process involved, and we can go into more detail. I have not brought in additional detail here. And IMs can contribute technically or otherwise to one or more of the technical specification groups, and to use 3GPP results to the extent possible. And they have a right to participate in all technical specification groups. So actually the IMs are the ones who actually drive the standards process in 3GPP and standards development in 3GPP. And we have currently 53 or 54 IMs from TSDSI who have started contributing to 3GPP. We had around 20 for a long time, but now this is about 53, 54. Observer and guest, I have explained that to who are the observers and who are the guests. So this is only a little more detail. And both are for limited period. Observers are for 6 months, and guests are invited for a defined period by the study group for contributing or providing, technical inputs for a particular topic which is being discussed in a study group. So this is actually the structure for technical work, and we can spend some more time here. So there is a project coordination group at the top. It consists of the organizational partners, basically, and MRPs, and three technical specification groups, TSGs. They drive the entire technical work. TSG RAN, which deals with the radio access network, CT deals with core network and terminals, and SA deals with services and system aspects. So when we go to RAN, for example, it has now 6 working groups. So RAN is a supervisory body of the 6 working groups and a final decision-making body. The basic technical work will happen, basic technical work of creating a report or a specification or a correction of the specification will happen in one of the groups. But final approval comes to the RAN, TSG, and also any thing to be corrected or updated in the specification, that also has to be finally approved in the TSG. So if you see, for example, in the RAN, we have WG1, which works on radio layer 1 aspects, WGT on layer 2 and layer 3 aspects, and so on. WG3, WG4 is a very important group which works on the radio performance, and 5 works on the conformance testing part. 6 is all dealing with the older technologies, GSM Edge, radio access network, to the extent that they are required to be updated along with the growth of technology. Otherwise, no new specifications are emerging from WG6. Similarly, CT has 1, 3, 4, and 6. The 2 and 5 are missing. They were used to be there, but in due course of time, as the requirement was not there, they have been abolished or disbanded. So, and similarly, SA has 6. So they work on services, architecture, security, codec and media, telecom management, and mission critical specifications. Actually, SA1 is the basic group which starts with working on the requirements and architecture of the services, and that becomes the basis for other works in CT and RAN. So these 3 groups, RAN, CT, and SA, they work in close coordination. And as we go forward in the presentation, I will bring out how the inter-coordination at the IM level also is required to be done. So the TSGs are organized into working groups, and they meet 4 times a year: March, June, September, and December. And in between the TSGs plenary meetings, we have 1 or 2 meetings of the respective working groups, depending on the work they have at hand. TSG, when the physical meetings happen, the TSG meetings are co-located, normally around the same time, same week they happen. Of course, for last 2 years, it has been working on e-meeting mode, so dates have been slightly different, but most of the time they are overlapping dates. And WGs have their independent schedule. Even if they are meeting electronically, they decide their own way, and they meet at different times, and 1 or 2 times in the interregnum, quarterly interregnum. And the leadership of the TSGs and WGs is also on election basis. Among the IMs, elected persons chair it, and one term is for 2 years, and one person can have a consecutive term of consecutive 2 terms, and then somebody else has to come. So PCG is the coordination group, as the name suggests, that the technical work is actually happening in the TSGs and WGs, but overall final work plan approval, that what are the items which will be worked upon in 3GPP is approved by PCG, not decided by PCG as such, but the TSGs bring in their final proposals, submit to PCG, and PCG meets twice a year in April and October normally, and they put a final stamp. And if there are some inputs from PCG, it can also go to the TSGs for consideration. So that is a process. And between the meetings also, if PSG has to decide, PCG has to meet or decide on something, that electronically, in the mail basis, email discussion basis, the decisions happen in the interim period. So it determines the overall time frame and work program of the TSGs. And also appeals from individual members on procedural and technical difficulties. We discussed now about the technical specification groups, but little more detail here, same thing. Additional thing is that the WGs have about 350 participants and handle up to 1300 technical documents per week of meeting. So this is some of the busiest working groups. They have this kind of volume participation. Maybe some working groups I have seen having more than even 350 people sitting in a room at a time and discussing a large number of papers. So, and they also prepare a detailed time plan for entire activity, which is allotted to them at the beginning of year or at the beginning of release. We will explain what is a release, and based on that, they time their activity and try to complete those activities. And the TSGs, once they have the work program, the first level of work program is approved by TSG, and within that scope, WG has to work and manage their time. So this is a snapshot of the scope of the working groups. We will not read out each one of them, but it gives a fair idea. As we said, WG1. And also just to mention that WG1 of RAN also is called RAN1 for simplifying the one. Similarly, WG1 of SA will be called SA1, like that. So RAN1 has, as we saw, it is layer 1 specifications. So it talks about physical channels, transport, etc. WG3 is, WG2 is for layer 2 and layer 3. So it talks of layer 2 and layer 3 things. And it's important that we maintain a backward compatibility for everything. So they even take care of the JRAN, or that means the second generation mobility and other, or even the UTRAN, the third generation projects, third generation specifications. WG4 is about all radio performance, base stations and others, repeaters. Then WG5, as we said, is about conformance testing. WG6 is level, that means second generation or 2G interfaces and things, updating with respect to other technologies. Similarly, SA, WG1, WG2, WG4, all that. So this is just to show a snapshot. We can see these details are available on the 3GPP website as well. WG5, WG6. WG6 is the latest working group which works on the mission critical applications and public protection and disaster relief kind of applications. CT is, as the name suggests, core network and terminals. So basically, some radio related part and some other part of the and services part is dealt in SA and RAN for the core for the terminals, but the other part of the terminals and the core network entirely is dealt by CT. As you can see, WG6 is working on the SIM modules and multimedia, iSIM similarly. A lot of things they do, but which are at the core network level and the terminal level. Important to know for today's workshop is that what are the 3GPP working processes, what are the documents named, and how do we contribute. So, so there are four important things. One is a feature of a specification. That means it is a new or a substantially enhanced functionality, which represents added value to the existing system. That means you want to add a feature or bring in a feature into the specification that should have this qualification, a new functionality or enhancement of functionality, and it creates a building block for a specification. And based on this feature, either a study item or a work item is created. What is a study item? A study item is a feasibility study to analyze the market and the potential technical difficulties in implementation, and developing a recommendation that how we should proceed, whether we should create a work item for a particular thing. But it is not necessary that everything goes through SI. It can also become a WI work item, that a feature is introduced and the membership is sure that we can straight away go into a work item. So the work item means which can result into a standard or a specification. So there they develop the feature into a specification, and releases are specifications grouped together. That means a set of specifications for RAN or CT or SA, once they are grouped together and say this is a feature of release, we will explain release in more detail in the next slides. So this is called a release. For example, we introduced 5G in 3GPP with the release 15. Then it's updated in release 16. Now release 17 is going to be finalized this month in the TSG meeting happening this week. And then release 18 work has already started. So this work compiles a set of specifications with added features which have been agreed in advance. Then there is a change request. It's very important activity in the standards and 3GPP as well, because there are a large number of specifications and there are sometimes errors or there are sometimes implementation issues which come. So members can bring in change requests. So change request comes when a specification is almost final and being released as a version X00 means if it is release 15, it will be called 15.0.0. That is the first specification for release 15 on a particular topic. So IMs can bring in a CR for in the working group, suggesting changes. And then once that WG approves, it goes to the TSG and TSG finally approves, and then only it is incorporated into the specification. Then there is a freezing of specification, what it means. So specification development takes quite some time, and at some point of time it has to be told that okay, the objective of this specification, when we started working on a particular specification, objectives are met. Then the TSG, WG supports and TSG decide that okay, specification is frozen, no more change. But the frozen specification is released, but even then later the CRs can be brought. And second part is that after the specifications are frozen, so all the detailed protocol specifications, whatever are required, they are then finalized. ASN1 is basically developed after the specification is frozen. So this is a different, another view of the functioning of the process, that stage 1 is a requirement setting, stage 2 is developing architecture, and stage 3 is a protocol. So these are the main three in the development process. And stage 4 is basically developing test specifications or conformance specifications, which are done in, for example, RAN 5 does it. And here also there is an IPR policy. Article 55 of the working procedures of 3GPP provides that the IPR policy is that the IMs who are contributing to the standards in the 3GPP, they have to declare their IPRs to their parent SDO, parent organization. So if a member of TSDSI goes as an individual member to 3GPP and it thinks that there is an essential IPR or a potentially essential IPR which is included in the standard as per that IM's contribution, then that should be declared to TSDSI. And once it is declared, then it is then posted on the TSDSI website under the heading IPR declarations. And there are many more details. And this policy is so because 3GPP being a non-legal entity, it cannot have IPR declarations and bind members, etc., to do certain things legally. So the responsibility then lies on the organizational partners. And in the case of India, it is TSDSI. So this is a glance of 3GPP. So it is working for 23 plus years. 1998 it was incorporated. It has currently, of all releases combined, more than 10,000 specifications. Of course, the actual specifications on people work because releases keep on coming. Old release specific equipment becomes phasing out, but specification still exists because we don't know in the world who is maintaining what. So, for example, even release 15 and 16, which are for 5G, they have almost 5,000 specifications. So this is the kind of volume, and it is driven by till now lakhs of contributions which have been considered for these specifications. 2000 plus many years, it may be more, much more, and almost 750 IMs from world over. And the working groups which we just saw, they count to 16. So this is what shows the volume of 3GPP and the scope of 3GPP. So this is an indicative, time plan of release 17, which is going to be finalized now. So this time plan is made at the beginning of each release. To release 17, you see in the blue boxes, you see 2022 Q3 is frozen, and coding protocol freeze will happen in the Q2. Q2 will be the protocol freeze, continue up to Q3. Stage 3 freeze happening now in March, and by June we will have the ASN1 freeze. So 17 work is over. Release 18 package, that finally what will be the content of release 3, it was approved in the December meeting of TSGs. They worked independently and then worked together, seeing interdependence and all coordination. They approved the content package, and now February onwards and even now March, the stage 2 work of release 18 functional freeze will happen in 2023, but the work has started between December 21 and Q1 of 23. Now in the next year, there will be a stage 2 functional freeze. That okay, no more new functionalities, and stage 3 freeze, final specification freeze will be Q4. That means December 23, we will have the release 18 specifications. It takes 3 more months for the protocol specifications to be finalized. Now coming to the grassroots, that how as individual members, what is the process we need to follow for contribution to 3GPP? So first thing is that you, as we saw in the previous slides, you have to become TSDSI member and then IM of 3GPP. Once that is done, then you have to open a EOL account. EOL account is HC Online. HC Online is because the secretariat for 3GPP is maintained by HC, one of the organizational partners, and that is a separate unit under HC, which is called MCC, Mobile Competency Center, which is a secretariat to 3GPP. So they assist in opening a EOL account for each individual member, and from the website, and then you select and register for a meeting or the working group or the meeting which you are interested, using your EOL account credentials, and then you use access all the documents and all the any other activity which you want to do. And here in the bottom we have attached a process document, how on the website when you go, how the account is to be opened. It is mentioned there. I will not open that document in the interest of time. So now coming to the contributions, most important part, that because this is a global organization, so it is bound by very strict working procedures. There are very, very strict working procedures, of course, with some flexibility of adopting them at the working group or as a TSD level, but not the fundamental principles. So there is a very detailed working procedure which specifies how the contributions will be brought in, how the working group will deal with it, how TSD will deal with it. Every aspect of submissions and approvals, they are available in the working procedures. We have hyperlinked here. And it is also important to be aware about the ongoing work in general. That means all study groups, what they are doing, all working groups, and then broadly speaking, because once you have an area of interest, it may have an overlap with other working groups also. So we should know what is happening in other working groups, and very carefully in the WGs of your interest, what actually is happening under different study items and work items. And it is important to note that topics of work in working groups are frozen as a part of release content at the TSG level. So as we saw, release 18 content was fixed or finalized in December 21 meeting. And it will take now 1.5 years, almost 2 years now, to complete the work. So during this 2 years period, the topics of work have been frozen there. And only thing is that wherever new work items or study items are, there is a scope of adding, then only you can introduce. Otherwise, sub work items or sub study items only can be added. Content normally remains frozen unless there is some other exigency to add another one. And then the proposals for normative work and study work against topics can be approved at the time of release, as I explained, or later, depending on the time and priority of work. So knowing this, studying the papers, that means becoming a TSG member, becoming IM, aware about working procedures, and then choosing the working groups or depending on your area of interest. Choose the topic of your interest, collaborate with the supporters. Yeah, this is very important point, though it is written in 2 sentences here. But important point is here that if a organization IM takes a proposal on its own and there is nobody supporting, then there is no chance. And at least to make a proposal acceptable to be heard or accepted, there is that 1 + 4. That means the IM and 4 more IMs need to co-sign that this is, yes, we agree with this proposal. But then most of the time that is not sufficient. We have to have a lot of interaction with other IMs who are working in this field, take their, have offline discussions with them, and then introduce, or sometimes introduce because the meeting is 1 week long, but before that have a tie-up with people to have a offline, see what if they want a modification in the proposal, what you have said, and all that. So many negotiations take place even at the introduction stage. And then negotiation and offline meetings and collaboration is a continuous process till your work, even if accepted, whenever accepted, is finally resulting into a standard or a report, whatever you intend to do. So another part is that how do we know when a meeting is taking place? So there is a 3GPP calendar which is available on the website, and this is always they fixed meetings almost an year in advance, dates and the places. So for example, we can see here quickly how the calendar looks like. Yeah. So here calendar, and this is the table. In this table you will find calendar. You can click on any one of them. For example, RAN plenary. So it will show up. Yet within some time, just a minute. Yeah. So here, for example, you can see RAN meetings, RAN 95 cancelled means they were planning physical as well as e-meetings together during the Corona time. So they cancelled 95, and first now it's the e-meeting which is happening from 17th of March till 23rd of March online. And then RAN 96 is planned which is for June, is a physical meeting Budapest. 97 is a physical meeting US. 98 is a physical meeting at Sevilla. So this is the way for all working groups and TSGs, there will be a meeting calendar. So you can see which meetings are taking place, when they are taking place, etc. And then you can choose any one of them depending on your interest, and then right. So this is some list. Let me come back to my presentation. So see the calendar, topic of interest, collaboration, and also subscribes to the emailing lists of the group to receive emails for meeting documents. So how to subscribe? So there is a link here. So this is the email lists, right? Now in the email list, it's given that list.3gpp.org. If you click, you will have all the list of all working groups, study groups. You select that, subscribe to that. There is a procedure given, and based on that, you can become. You should actually become, because all the important information about the meeting of the group, documents, or some what email discussions are happening, you will get information there. So it's very important to be there, to be subscribing to the email lists. Now, to know, we should also know that what is the work which is happening. So the 3GPP release 18, for example, is the work which is now going on. It's already started. So we should know that what is, we should know that what are the topics. And topics are here. Not this one. No, sorry. Let me come back to the slide which I wanted. This is done. Yeah, I was here. So why it is not opening? Yeah. Yes, so this is, you can see, so this is a list of the frozen main topics in release 18. And if you see in column D, S1, S2, R2, these are the names of the working groups, SA1, SA2, RAN2, who will lead this work. And there will be further details of, definitely of different working WIs, SIs. But here also you can see that some of the work is already 100%, especially that happens in the SA, because they are the first ones to create requirements and architecture. So they start operating even before the release has been frozen. So some of them are 100%, some are 75%, some are 0. So 0 are where the work will start now. So they keep on updating it regularly, but this gives an idea. And you see the number of topics here at the end, 200 topics. But this will lead to a large number of study and items and work items, still, or sub work items. This is how, it's just to give an idea that what kind of work and the way it is organized is happening. Now to make a submission, not only that we do all this, but there are templates provided. So for a new topic to be introduced, this is called a 3GPP work item description template, or WID. And we can open it here. See this template. I have picked up from one of the TSG's templates. They slightly modified some of the descriptions. I'm showing this here to indicate the way it is detailed and how it is ensured that we will not create a chaos by developing a specification. So what do? They have an acronym of the name, an identifier of the work item, then a potential target release, and impacts. Very important part is that impacts on UICC aspects, ME, mobile entity, AN, CN, others. That means they want to see that there are any other impacts on what you are bringing in. Then what kind of it is, whether it's a feature, it's a building block, it's a work task, it's a study item. You have to select what you want to do. Then parent, if it is a sub work item. So if there is a parent work item, you have to give details of that. And dependencies. So if any other, then you must know as a proposer that what can be the dependencies on other work which is going on, right? Or any other related work item which is going on in 3GPP that you must mention, then justify, then objective, then time budget, whether it is already, how it will fit into the existing time budget. You want additional budget or what? So this is a very detailed, 4.3 is a very detailed exercise, time budgeting. And they say expected output and time scale, when you want to complete, who is the repurchase, right? And all those things. Again, impacted TS and TR, work item repurchase, work item leadership, who will lead this, aspects that involve other working groups, and in supporting individual members. So as we saw in the previous slides, we have to give the name of the supporting members. It is written here, at least 4 supporting IMs are needed. There is an expectation that these companies will provide resources to progress the work. The supporters are not simply, a lip service. It is expected that they will work with the lead IM to develop this technical work. Note that having 4 supporting companies is a necessary but not sufficient condition. This is very important, that even if you carry with those 4 support, this will be accepted as it is or accepted at all will depend on the decision of the working group where they want to do it. There will be a discussion, justification, everything, but it is not necessary that what you take will be approved or will be approved as it is. There will be changes. So this I showed because you must know that what kind of details these people go. These people means 3GPP actually goes into, and how careful and how I should say that how engaged we should be with our work and with 3GPP that we can take these contributions there. So sorry, my presentation again. I'm doing some mistake here. My presentation, yeah, here. Is it done? No. Just a minute. Yeah. Similarly, there is a temporary document template. This is a contribution template. When you are not actually taking a initial proposal or a new proposal, but you want to contribute to an ongoing work, then this is the template at which work you are going to go on, what is the rationale and detailed proposal. This looks simple, but it has to carry lots of details when people make a proposal. Right, so this is okay. Then we go to the next one. And so contribution process is log into the 3GPP portal and go to the meeting, and you want to register for a meeting. So you go for that meeting, and there are some sideway 3 dots which provide you various options. So click on contribution to the meeting, and once you submit that, your contribution will be submitted and you will be given a TDoc number or a temporary doc number, which is a reference for carrying this into the meeting. And whatever I have tried to say, more details you can see in all these reference links which have been given. 3GPP, then FAQs, then you have TSDSI home. It provides you detail about SA, RAN, CT home, then working procedures, liaison statement. There's many dimensions to 3GPP working, which I have not brought in here because the idea was more of participation and contribution wise, but you can go to 3GPP website and understand more, have more ideas about its working. Thank you very much. That was all my presentation.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful presentation on 3GPP standard development and process.
Thank you. Is my presentation is off, no? Right. Okay.
Yes. Your
Thank
presentation, your session has helped the participant to understand the 3GPP standards development process more objectively. Sir, I request you to make available yourself in QA and answer session for replying the question of the participant.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Participant, now we are moving to today our last technical session on functioning of NWG, National Working Group, and contribution submission process. So now I would like to invite Shri Ashutosh Pandey sir, DDG TEC, for his session. He is an ITS officer from 1985 batch. He has 34 years of experience in the field of telecommunication domain. His experience span across all the domain of telecom, right from planning, installation, operation, maintenance to standardization. He has contributed tremendously in 5G specification as the convener of National Study Group 5. He drives the industry and service provider to project country requirement in ITU. Please welcome Ashutosh Pandey sir for his session on functioning of NWG and contribution submission process. May I request Pandey sir to start his session. Sir, please.
Thank you, Jitendra. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
My screen is visible?
Yes, sir. Sir, make it your presentation full screen, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
It's full screen now?
Yes, sir. No, sir. Not now. Yes, sir. Now it is.
Very good afternoon to all the participants, and I welcome you to this session on functioning of NWG and contribution submission process. During my presentation, I will cover brief overview of ITU. I think Mr. Bhatia has made my task easier. He has covered in detail, but I have 3-4 slides. Very quickly, I will pass through those slides. It will be a revision sort of. Then I will cover a ITU process for contribution submission, because in our national working group or national study group, we follow the similar process. So all the participants should know how do we submit the contribution in ITU. Then a bit I'll talk about national working group and national study groups. Then starting our engagement with ITU, finally the way forward. So very briefly, although Mr. Bhatia has gone in very detail, ITU working is broadly categorized in 3 sectors. ITU-R, which is responsible for standardization and global spectrum management. ITU-T, responsible for standardization of network and service aspects. And ITU-D, for operation of telecom in developing countries. Just recapitulate. Then who all participates in ITU? It's a galaxy of people from all sectors, say regional and national SDOs like TSDSI is Indian SDO, then HC, IEC, FCC. People from regional groups like APT, Asia Pacific Telecommunity, which has 40+ members. CEPT, European Council for PNT, which represents European Union countries. Then ATU, African Telecom Union, which represents African countries. It has 50+ members. So they, through ATU, they participate in ITU. Various industry fora like 3GPP, TIA, 1M, 2M, they also come to ITU. Then UN bodies. For example, WHO deals with the issue of EMF, radiation effects on human body. Whenever this subject is dealt, people from WHO participate in ITU. Member states, sector members, and associate members. Like country who are the member of UN automatically becomes the member of ITU. India being a member of UN, it becomes automatically the member of ITU. And in ITU, Department of Telecom is the body representing member state of India in ITU. Then there are sector members and associate members, as Mr. Bhatia explained, by paying the nominal fee. Various academic institutions, then industry associations, they can become the sector members and associate members of ITU and can participate in the ITU meetings. Jitendra ji, this is not moving.
Sir, we are on ITU participation slide, sir.
But now it is not moving. This is frozen.
This is frozen, sir. Can you, sir? Again, sir, reconnect it, please, sir. Sir, go to the window, sir, please.
Yes.
Window and share, sir.
Next screen is visible? About ITU management structure?
No, sir. For me, not.
But on my screen, it is visible. Okay, let me.
No, sir, go to the window, sir. Sharing mode, after sharing.
So shall I log out?
If we have copy, we can run it from our side. Jiten?
Yeah, yes, sir. Give me.
आपके पास copy है presentation?
Yes, sir. Sir.
Why don't you run?
Yes, sir.
पांडे साहब ये रन करेंगे, ठीक है?
Shall I log out, sir?
You can.
Sir, you continue. No need to log out. Let Inder share, and then you can keep on.
You can just unshare.
That.
जितेंद्र अपलोड कर रहे हैं?
सर बस एक मिनट सर, वो सर ने शेयर नहीं की थी पीपीटी सर, जस्ट आई एम टेकिंग फ्रॉम हिम। और दोनों स्पीकर ने कर ली थी सर, जस्ट आई एम टेकिंग 1 मिनट सर प्लीज।
Now is it visible?
नहीं बिल्कुल नहीं, वो अपलोड नहीं हो रहा है। जितेंद्र, you have copy of presentation or not? जितेंद्र, आपके पास कॉपी है प्रेजेंटेशन का कि नहीं?
नो सर, सर हैज नॉट शेयर सर विद मी, आई रिक्वेस्टेड हिम सर। सर जस्ट आई
ठीक है, चलो ठीक है। अभी आ रहा है पांडे जी, ठीक है, बढ़ाओ आगे।
अभी मेरे में नहीं बढ़ रहा सर।
आप उसको ना प्रेजेंटेशन क्या तो व्हाट्सएप कर दीजिए मुझे या आप जितेंद्र को, हम लोग यहाँ से कर देते हैं, बैंडविड्थ की प्रॉब्लम हो रही है। आप अनशेयर कर लें पहले।
ओके
जितेंद्र,
Sir, I
can
don't
you
have
hear
his,
me?
yes, sir. I don't have his present.
Do you have the copy of presentation? Yes or no?
No, sir. I don't
Then
have,
keep
sir.
quiet. Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Pandey ji, please share the slides with me or with Jitin. आपने भेजा प्रेजेंटेशन पांडे जी?
Yes, sir. I have received it, sir.
You received, please share it now. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir.
हाँ जितेंद्र जी, थर्ड स्लाइड, फोर्थ स्लाइड, नेक्स्ट, नहीं जस्ट प्रीवियस टू, यस 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 यस। Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, very much.
Thank you, sir. So sorry for the disruptions. This slide was already covered by Mr. Bharat Bhatia in detail. Just to summarize that plenipotentiary is a highest body of ITU. It is held every 4 years and it is the key event at which ITU members decide on the future role of organization. It sets the union's general policy, adopts 4-year strategic and financial plans, and elects the senior management as explained by Mr. Bharat Bhatia. Secretary General and Deputy Secretary General are elected in this conference only. Then, as I explained already, it is ITU working is covered in 3 sectors: T sector, R sector, and D sector. And below this are study groups. So WTSA, which is responsible for T sector, covers the study groups of T sector, and at the conclusion of WTSA, study groups are also they are co-terminus with WTSA. So next study cycle starts. As explained, WTSA has just happened, concluded on 9th March 2022 in Geneva. So we will be reconstituting the fresh national working group corresponding to ITU study groups. Like R sector, WRC happened in 2019, and the study cycle for WRC is 2020 to 2023. So they call it National Study Group, and they are already working. 6 national study groups are working under WPC for radio sector. Then D sector, it is coordinated by IR cell of DOT, and national working groups are co-terminus with WTDC, World Telecom Development Council. Next slide. This is a brief about the processes for submission of contribution. So the members, like sector members, associate members, whosoever are the members, they submit the contribution, and the contributions are directly submitted to the working parties under the study groups. So in working parties, the contributions are discussed threadbare, including the comma, full stop. And once the text is stabilized, it is converted to PDNR. PDNR is preliminary draft new report. This goes to the study group, and it's just a formality. There are no controversial issues. PDNR by study groups is converted to DNR, that is draft new report, which finally converts to recommendation, handbooks, and reports after the formalities, like it is circulated to administration or maybe approved in radio assembly. And final output is in the form of recommendation, handbooks, and reports. If you see the below portion of this slide, various governments, member administrations, they through notification register for protected frequencies and orbital slots. This is the prerogative of member administration and governments for applying the orbital slots and protected frequencies to ITU. Next. Yeah, this was already covered by Mr. Bhatia. Main point is that study group 5, which is the most vibrant group, belong to terrestrial services, and working party 5D deals with RIT, that is radio interface technology of IMT 2020. So corresponding national study group 5 is the most vibrant national study group under WPC. Next. In ITU-T, we have 11 study groups. Study group 2 deals with operational aspects. Study group 3 deals with economic and policy issues, including the tariff issues. Study group 5 deals with environmental circular economy. It covers the issues of EMCMI, EMF radiations, and green energy. Study group 9 deals with broadband cable and TV. Study group 11 deals with signaling protocol and test specifications. And study group 12 deals with performance and quality of service of telecom networks. Next. Study group 13, this is very important, as indicated by Mr. Bhatia, deals with future networks and cloud. In this study group, core functioning of 5G is being dealt. Then study group 15, transport, access and home, deals with optical technologies, PON, DWDM, etc. Study group 16 deals with multimedia. Study group 17 deals with security, and 20 with IoT, smart cities and communications. So corresponding to all these 11 groups, we have national working group, and they submit the contribution to these study groups. So in subsequent slides, I will talk about national working groups. Next slide. Yeah, as I indicated that Department of Telecom is the nodal department on behalf of Government of India in ITU, and in DOT, within DOT, the 3 sectors are coordinated. ITU-T is coordinated by Senior DDG, TEC, Telecom Engineering Center. ITU-R activities are coordinated by WPC Wing, Wireless Planning and Commission Wing, and ITU-D activities are coordinated by International Relation Wing of DOT Headquarters. So these are the 3 agencies under which National Working Group or National Study Group coordinate and submit the contribution to ITU. Next. So this slide about national working groups and national study groups, only differences in ITU-T sector, corresponding groups are called national working groups, which is coordinated by Senior DDG TEC, and study groups under WPC, they name it as national study groups, and they correspond to the study groups under ITU-R. So as I already explained, these NWGs and NSGs are reconstituted in every study cycle. This study cycle is between the corresponding WTSA for T sector, WRC for R sector, and WTDC for D sector. So currently we are in 2023 study cycle of ITU-R, and as I said, this WTSA has just concluded on 9th March only. So we will start the process of constituting national working group corresponding to ITU T sector. So for this, we will issue the notice. It will be published on TEC website and sent to all the stakeholders, calling for volunteers, and this group will be constituted. Maybe next month we will finalize the groups, and then when we can start working on the contribution for submission to ITU. Next. This is the structure of National Working Group. It is headed by a chairman. Chairman is assisted by vice chair or rapporteur. Then chairman can appoint working group for specific work items. So, and then we have a convener who convenes all the meetings and coordinates on behalf of chairman. So members of NSG and NWG are drawn from industry associations, manufacturers, service providers, academia, R&D institutions. As I said, for this T sector, we will issue very soon we'll issue the notice inviting volunteers. They may join the respective national working group. Next. Yes, these are the NSG's National Study Group under WPC for 2023 cycle. These are already working. NSG 1, which is dealing on spectrum management, it is chaired by Mr. Gulab Chand, Junior JWA. Then NSG 3, radio wave propagation, it is being chaired by Mr. MK Patnaik of WPC. NSG 4, which deals on satellite services, it is chaired by Dr. P.K. Jain of Department of Space. NSG 5, which deals with terrestrial services, including the Working Party 5D, where radio interface technology of IMT is discussed. It is chaired by Senior DG TEC. National Study Group 6, which deals with broadcasting services, is chaired by a member from Ministry of Information Broadcasting. And NSG 7 pertains to science services. It is chaired by Dr. Kumar Mohan, Department of Space, for the period 2020 to 2023. Next. This is the slide on contribution formulation process. Say ITU publishes the yearly calendar on website, and accordingly the meetings of national working groups are planned. Say if the working party meeting is in the month of July, so I will initiate the process in the month of April. It is actually initiated 2-3 months prior to that. So we issue the notice calling for the contribution from the members of National Working Group. Till deadline date also indicated in the notice. So the contributions received before that date are circulated to all the members of National Working Group for their comments. Then on the day of meeting, the member who has submitted this contribution presents the contribution, and all the comments received from the members, they are discussed threadbare, similar to ITU. And once the members arrive on consensus, the contribution is submitted to the processing nodal wing in DOT headquarters. For, as I already said, for our sector, it is WPC, and for D and T sector, normally it is submitted to member T for approval, and then it is uploaded on the ITU website as Indian contribution. Next. Starting with ITU, say this is just an example. I am interested in human exposure to electromagnetic fields due to digital technologies. So this work item is being dealt in study group 5. I go to the ITU site and open the web page of study group 5. So there I find that this item is being referred in question number 3 under working party 1. So this is this has been taken from ITU site. For question number 3, Mr. Frederick Levensky is the rapporteur. So if you see this terms of reference and work items, I further click on work items. So next slide. Yes. If I click on work items, so further I find that 3 documents are being worked in. So one is K-dot devices. It is under study. It is to be finalized by 2022, and approval, alternate approval process. It's a fast track method of ITU for approving the recommendation. Version, it's a new document. Liaison relationship with ITU-R, IEC and IEEE. Then subject title is RF EMF exposure assessment of the wireless radio communication devices operating close to the human body. Priority is low. This priority is decided by the working party chair depending on who all are the members of this contribution, how many administrations have supported this. So based on this, the priority is decided. But this is a working document. So I can contribute in this device. If I click further on this, I will see that some contributions have been submitted under this heading. So I can go through those contributions and submit my contribution. Similarly, K.P is another document which is being handled in under this working party. K.P is a notional name given to the document. It pertains to the comparison between peak and real exposure in the long-term considerations. This is also under study. Time frame is 2022. It is also through alternative approval process. It's a new document, and liaison statement is to ITU-R, ITU-D and IEC. Its priority is medium. So I have to identify my area of interest, then find out which study group is dealing on the subject, and then follow this process. What are the documents being undertaken under that work item? Next. This is the template for submission of our contribution to ITU. This has been taken from the ITU side. A.1 is the recommendation. If anybody wants to go through, he can read. So question number for which I am submitting the contribution, for which meeting, provisional name. If it's a new document, I can give any provisional name. What will be the title, suggestive title? Then what are the base text? Timing, time frame, when likely to be completed? Who all wants to be the editor? Approval process, then scope of the document. So this is a template in which I can submit my contribution to ITU. Next slide. It's in 2 slides. Next. Yeah. No, next. Yeah. Summary of the proposal which I want to submit to ITU, then relation to other standards, liaison with other study groups, then supporting members, who all the members who are supporting this work item. So this is the standard template in which the contribution to ITU is submitted. Next slide. Yeah, as indicated by Bhatia sir, just now concluded WTSA, India has one chair position and 7 vice chair positions. Contact details of these officers have been written. So I will leave this presentation with the organizers, and anybody interested in these particular study groups, they can send a mail. So automatically they will be made the member of National Working Group and start contributing. Like operational aspects, Shri V.K. Roy, he is a director in TEC, he is the vice chair. For economic policy issues, we deal with tariff. Shri S.K. Mishra has been elected the vice chair. Broadband cable and TV, Mr. Pradipta Viswas, he is from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. He is a vice chair. Study group 11, which deals with signaling protocols and test specifications, Mr. R.R. Mittal, he is the chairman. This is the first time when somebody from India has been elected as the chairman of study group in ITU. Study group 13, which deals with future network and cloud, Mr. A.S. Verma, he is my colleague in TEC. He has been elected as the vice chair. Study group 15 deals with transport, access and home, Mr. Sudipta Bhaumik. He is from Sterlite, from industry, which secretary was mentioning. He has been elected as the vice chair. Study group 16 dealing with multimedia, Mr. Ashok Kumar from NTI PRIT is the vice chair. So this time we have one chair and 7 vice chair positions. First time ever highest numbers in ITU. Next, I think that is all. Yeah, last slide. So way forward, as a student, please visit the ITU website, access to ITU documents, because majority of the recommendation handbooks, they are freely downloadable. Even training on ITU procedures, which is available on the ITU website, it's free training. Link is there on the ITU website. Identify the National Study Group or National Working Group of your interest. Be the member, become the member of that group. Then remote participation in ITU, because for the last 2 years there were no physical meetings and we were participating remotely in ITU study group meetings. So just drop a mail after becoming the member of NWG to the rapporteur or the chair. You will be included as the part of Indian delegation and then start developing contributions. So this is all from my side. Thank you. जितेंद्र जी, आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही.
Sir, mic off.
Thank you, sir, for sharing the function of NWG and contribution submission process. Really very informative session. Now we will start our question and answer session. Dear friend, you can ask your question by raising your hand or use chat box. So all the speakers are here on the platform. So let me see any chat box, any questions here. No. Participant, you can ask your question. All the speakers are available. Please raise your hand if any question is there, any doubt is there regarding contribution process.
There is a question by Mr. Ram Manohar.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Yes, Mr. Ram.
He should unmute. Please ask him to unmute.
Mr. Ramji, please unmute yourself. Please speak. Pritam ji, please speak. Mr. Ram Mohan ji, Manoj ji, please speak. Unmute. Okay. Now go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. My question is that ITU-T has two areas. One is standards, other is technology. The standard, the structure you have explained, like on the top WT-SA is there, followed by ITU-T study group. What about the other area, technology? The question is intended to the first session.
First section. Related to the first session.
Yes, yes.
Sir, Bhatia, sir.
I want to ask Bhatia, sir. Like I want to repeat once again. ITU-T, as shown in the slide, has two areas. One is standards, one is technology. In the area of standard, the structure has been explained. That is WT-SA, followed by ITU-T study group. What about the structure in the technology? Whether they follow the same process or further hierarchies are there?
So, if I can clarify, actually the same study groups and the WT-SA, they work in both areas. Standards and technologies go hand by hand. So when a technology is developed, then the standard is also developed. So ITU-T has both the activities in the same areas of the study groups and the WT-SA.
Okay, so there is no separate study group for the technology, right? I mean, the same study group.
No, each study group is its own, depending on the area of studying. They have their own way of either developing a standard or preparing it. In many cases, the reports are prepared. In many cases, recommendations are prepared. Reports which include various technologies, or recommendation which includes various standards.
Thank you, sir. That answers my question.
Okay. Thank you, Ram. You can unmute your side. Next question is from Mr. Pritam from TSDSI. Pritam ji, please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. So what I wanted to request is that our standards from our Indian context, since they should be accepted in the ITU and we are the largest participants and contribution in terms of the funds, in terms of the members, whereas we see the contributions and the standard accepted in most of the cases like 5G, it is maximum from either China or US. Somehow we lack. So as a nation, how should we ensure that our Indian context standards are commensurate to our contribution, commensurate to our size, commensurate to our market and the members? Thank you, sir.
So maybe I can add, and maybe Mittal Sahab can add some more. But I think we have to upgrade or increase our participation in the ITU as well as in areas like APT. We have been not so much active like other countries, particularly China, Japan, and Korea. They have been very actively involved and submitting many contributions on many subjects. We perhaps have to reorganize ourselves to submit more contributions. And I think as Secretary mentioned, there is a need for more cooperation and coordination at the national level, which can then increase our. But also I've seen that the participation from the industry, particularly the operator side, is not so much. So I think somehow we need to encourage our mobile operators and other operators to be more active in the ITU activities. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sir, one more question is there in chat box, sir. That is from Prince Singh ji. If an organization is a member of TSDSI, do the organization has to pay and to become an IM?
Yeah, this question I can take. Yes.
Yes.
So yes, as I indicated in my presentation, we have to pay annual. IM has to pay annual fee in addition to the TSDSI membership fee. So there is a fee every year. and that varies. So there is a tiered structure depending on the revenue of operations of the member organization in India. So there is a tiered fee structure starting from 7.5 lakh per year up to 3 lakhs per year to the lowest category, including the academia and R&D, the lowest category, and the corporate and with high revenue is 7.5 lakhs per year. It slightly varies depending on the expenditure estimates created by 3GPP, but yes, there is a fee. Thank you.
So there is no other question. Participant, if any question there, please let me know it. Otherwise, we will close this question and answer session. Sir, if you permit, sir, we can close this session with vote of thanks, sir.
Yes, I think we can close.
Yes. So now I invite Mr. Vishal, my colleague, for giving a vote of thanks to speakers and other senior dignitaries. Mr. Vishal, hand over to you.
Yes, thank you, sir. In regards to today's webinar on participation and contribution in ITU and 3GP, hosted by NTI-PRIT in collaboration with TSDSI, I firstly and foremostly thanks Shri K. Rajaramanji, Secretary Telecom, who have encouraged us for conducting this webinar in a short span of time, and they've been quite encouraging and motivating in this process, and they took out time on their busy schedule for inaugurating this webinar today. I thank them. Then I thank Shri UK Srivastava, DG NTI-PRIT, who have been motivating us for conducting various programs in NTI-PRIT on the relevant topics related to technologies. Then I thank Ms. Pamela Kumarji, DG TSDSI, for their guidance throughout this conduction and organizing this particular webinar. Shri S.K. Bhallaji, DG Telecom Security and PR, who have motivated his whole team and wholeheartedly helped us in organizing this webinar in a streamlined manner. And Shri Jitendra Gargji, who have put on all efforts in this regard so that this program goes with the flow. Then I thank all the esteemed speakers who have took their time from their busy schedules, Shri Bharat Bhatia ji, Shri A.K. Mittal ji, and Shri Ashutosh Pandey ji, for taking their valuable session and sharing their knowledge in various processes and structure related to ITU and 3GPP, and what is the way forward and how India is collaborating in various international platforms. And foremostly and lastly, I like to thank the audience from OEM, academia, government sectors who have joined in a large manner in this webinar and made this a success. I thanks all for their time. And lastly, I like to say that we will be circulating a feedback form after this workshop, and all the audience is being requested to kindly fill it and submit the same. Thanks a lot. Signing off here. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Jai Hind. Thank you.
Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Bhatia Saab, Mittal Saab.